Where are we? About 25% of the way into it, spending $100 million a week, looking at $20 billion worth of repairs in our housing stock, $10 billion worth of repairs in our commercial build, $7 billion into our civic amenities and $3 billion into infrastructure. That's where we're at, and that's a really interesting place to be. We're working our way through the cascading constraints on construction, seismic activity we've heard about, consent constraints, constraints on insurance, constraints on project management capability, human capital, supply chains, capital. We're working our way through those. And now it's about the opportunity. What I wanted to do, though, in my 8 minutes is just project out to 2026, because I understand that's the end of this reconstruction phase of Christchurch City, 2026. So let's pretend we're out there and let's see what sort of questions we might be asking in 2026. And I'll just run through them because I think that might create a bit of a platform for discussion, both in the question and answer time, but also later on in the day. First question is, why didn't we appreciate the scale of what we were going into? What does $45 billion being tipped into a population of 360,700 people look like? What does that change forever? Why were we so optimistic about timeframes? Unbelievably optimistic about timeframes. Do we reflect on just how well insured we were? We were ridiculously well insured. Have we taken into account the psychosocial impacts of our city? Have we taken into account enough the impact on people of this disaster as we reflect back from 2026? Why didn't we settle earlier on a common aspiration for our city, our region, and our island? Did we get government, local government, and the community working together on agreed common objectives fast enough? Do we put enough emphasis on the interdependency between our city and our region? And we've heard about the value of water from Tom Beaumont earlier on. Did we recognise early enough the importance of making our strategic assets relevant? We've got a City Council that has a $1.2 billion shortfall 2016. We will be selling some council-owned assets. The short game is to solve the council's financial problem. The long game is to position those assets so they make this city more strategically relevant. And I'm a little bit nervous about Auckland Airport investing in Queenstown Airport. I'm a little bit nervous about more trans-Tasman flights flying into Queenstown in peak season than coming into Christchurch. I'm a little bit nervous about the Port of Tauranga investing in the Port of Timaru and using Timaru as a feeder. And here we stand in splendid isolation with the Port of Lyttelton and Christchurch International Airport. We have the opportunity to get strategic investment into those entities to make a big difference in terms of our international significance. And I hope that we can look back in 2026 and say we did a good job on that. Did we get the transport interdependencies right in our city? What did we do as we emptied traffic out of the central city to the ring roads of Christchurch? Can we still get containers to our port down Brougham Street in a reasonable time frame? Did we resolve the parking issues in our central city? And it's reputed that we will be 1,000 car parks short in the core of the central city by October 2016. How does that looking in 2026? Did we recognise that within 10 years of the earthquake, Christchurch would be one capital hub of economic base of the South Island, and Queenstown Lakes would be the other? And did we factor that in to our thinking as a city going forward? Finally, why were we ever concerned about not delivering the most livable and attractive city in Australasia? Because despite all those questions, by 2026, we've done that. We've just conducted a survey of our membership, and we do that every year just to see what 3,000 businesses in Christchurch and beyond are thinking about. Last year was really interesting. The survey came back, and these are the top 6 issues last year, 2014. The first one was skill shortages. The second one was working capital constraints. That was followed by personal stress. The fourth one was staff performance. The fifth one, lack of sales. Amazing, 2014. Sixth one, productivity. Well, in the context of a $40 to $45 billion rebuild, in the context of $100 million being spent every week in our city, we now look at the 6 critical issues facing our members in Greater Christchurch. Interesting. First one, the need to be more strategic. We need to think about that because we do not think strategically. Our businesses are saying they need to be more strategic. The second one, managing growth. Surprise, surprise. Managing growth. We've got double-digit growth in this region. We've got locked in $100 million plus spend per week, every week into the foreseeable future. And we need our companies to be able to manage growth. And growth can be dangerous if it's not managed properly. What does it look like when you tip $45 billion into a population of 360,700 people? The third issue is working capital and cash flow constraints. Growing companies run out of cash. The fourth issue, labour constraints, finding skilled people in our city. And we know that we've got half the unemployment rate of the rest of New Zealand. We know that we've got thousands of migrants in the city at the moment to assist us with the rebuild, but skilled labour constraints still a big issue. The fifth one, interesting, personal stress. Hello? Here comes what Raf was talking about and others, what John Omler was talking about, the long-term impacts of the earthquake and the fact that some of us would describe our citizens now as suffering from cellular fatigue. You know, every cell in your body's tired because you've been through all this bullshit with insurance and you've been through all the trials and tribulations of operating in a city that has been on its knees and you're feeling pretty exhausted, cellular fatigue, and that has a lot of psychological connotations to it. And finally, the sixth one, productivity again, 6 both years in a row. So I just wanted to throw those up there because I think they're really, really important indicators of what is going on in our economy, what is going on in our city, what is going on in our region, and how we get those interdependencies worked out properly so that we can do what needs to be done in our city. Could I just finish off by saying that this rebuild is now up to us. You know, it's already been said that perception out there that the government's been handling the rebuild. Yeah, they've been handling some of the rebuild. They put $8 million in. They will say more, but the more, if you make up to the 15, was the EQC money that came in. Well, that's not theirs, it's ours, and we paid that. So of the total damage in Christchurch, $32 billion was covered by insurance. My understanding is $12 billion of that came out of EQC, $20 billion out of private insurance. The private sector is rebuilding the city, ladies and gentlemen, and it's up to us to make sure it happens. This is about our opportunity, and if we get it wrong, it's our fault. Thank you very much.